just up over the ridge, and on the other side was a lightning strike had hit a big old ponderosa, yellow pine. And so there was a little fire, probably 60 or 80 feet long around it, and that ponderosa was up there like a volcano, the smoke coming out the top, where it had been blown out, and it was hollow inside. I remember we worked on that damn thing, trying to get it down, cutting a 4-foot ponderosa with a Pulaski is not good. We didn't have a crosscut, I don't think, as I recall. And I remember a observer plane flew over and they threw us a message down and said, "We do not consider this fire controlled until you get that snag down."
That's funny.
We finally got that snag down on the hillside, and then we had to split it open because it was 30 feet long, I guess, and hollow all the way, and it was all fire on the inside of it. And man, that was a job splitting that big sucker open with Pulaskis. Chop, 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 chop.
It's a bad one.
Oh, that was miserable. I remember we got that fire, we got the line around the fire real quick, and then we knocked it all down, and we didn't have any trouble with that. It was just that snag. And we worked and worked on it. I remember at some point in the night, I was sitting there looking for fire or something, and I heard a noise, and I looked up, and here were these elk. They had come into the burn area and were rolling around in the ashes, just happy as could be, crashing around and rolling back and forth. We got it out finally, and about the time we did 2-pounders walked in, one of them was a little guy, and his name, young kid, his name was Jesse James, of all things. And the other guy, I don't remember what his name was, but he had a metal hard hat on. He was a big old, tall, slender, dark complected, maybe a Native American sort of fella. And he had, on the front of his metal hard hat, he had balls written on it. And he was a good guy, a wild man, son of a gun. And we started out of there, and it had rained on us, and all our stuff was wet. The parachutes, everything. And heavy. And poor old Tommy Oswald, not a very big guy, pretty slight built, kind of small. I think it was his second year jumping. And he had hell with that pack. It was so heavy. And we had a 15-mile pack out, which is a pretty good pack out. And I remember we'd stop along the way, and we'd always try and sit on the hillside to where the pack was sitting on the ground uphill from us so we could stand back up again. Finally, old Balls there, he grabbed up Tommy's backpack and carried it for him, because he just, poor kid, damn pack weighed more than he did. When we got into, I believe it was Bungalow Ranger Station where we came out, we weighed those packs, and they were like 115 pounds apiece, which is
real weight,
substantial.
Well, so that was first of 3 years jumping?
Yep, 3 years.
And did you ever get detailed anyplace else?
Well, that next year I had put in for the New Mexico crew, and I was the first alternate for the New Mexico crew, and I kept hoping somebody would sprain their ankle and couldn't go, so I would. But nobody got hurt or anything in the training jumps and stuff. And so they sent myself and a guy by the name of Bob Ingram, who had started with me in '59, sent us to Wheatus Guard Station, which is way back in the boonies over out of Bungalow, again, of all places. It was about a 5-mile walk, or 6 miles, maybe 7, back into this guard station. And we had to go back there and build an elk exclosure, where they fenced off a square acre and then surveyed what the elk ate and didn't eat and so on. So instead of being in New Mexico for my second year, I was digging post holes for an elk exclosure at Wheatus Guard Station, which was a miserable job, just miserable. Those posts were about 18 feet long and that big around, and they were so heavy we'd tie a rope on them, and you had to just strain to drag them downhill. And they had to be in the ground of 4 or 5 feet. You had to dig these big ass holes and then tip those big things up in there. It was brutal, hard work.
You spent weeks at that.
Yeah, we never did get it finished before. We'd go on the weekend. We'd go back into Missoula to go party around, and have a good time, and we went into Missoula, and Ingram stayed there, and I went on up to Shoto to see my folks. When I came back down, Ingram was gone. He'd gotten a fire while I was gone. He'd hung around the base, and so I had to go back out there by myself and work on that daggone thing. What a miserable.
Well, did you get any fires that year?
Yeah, I got, I think I got 10 that year. 8 or 10.
Out of Missoula?
Yep, out of Missoula. The one thing, here's a way to date my experience at Wheatus. We listened to the first heavyweight fight between Ingemar Johansson and Floyd Patterson. There was a little battery radio, and we managed to move it around and we could listen. And I was pulling for Johansson, and Ingram was pulling for Patterson, and when Ingemar Johansson knocked Patterson colder than hell, oh, Ingram was just mad. His champion had lost. The United States had lost. It was funny. But yeah, I don't remember exactly how many I got jumps that year.
Did you decide that you didn't want to go over to Grangeville, or what happened there?
Oh, and the first year. The first year. Yeah, I'd gone to university with Gary Williams. He was from New York, I believe, but a really fine person, really a hell of a guy. And so we trained together and everything, and being alphabetical, you know, in W&W, we did a lot of stuff together. And so when we got our training in, they were trying to pick a Grangeville crew, and Gary tried to persuade me to go to Grangeville with him. He said, "We can be jump partners, that's a good place to go." And I said, I think I'll stay in Missoula. I think I can get more jumps in Missoula. And of course, subsequently, later on, not too many weeks after that Ford Trimotor went in and landing at Moose Creek, and Gary got killed. I'm sure that if I had gone to Grangeville, I'd have been on that airplane. To this day, I'm kind of thankful about that one.
Yeah. So on your third year, did you jump out of Missoula strictly, or?
Third year, I made New Mexico and came to New Mexico and jumped here, and I got 17 fire jumps out of Silver City, and then went back and got a couple more in Missoula after that. Pulled a muscle in my leg, in my groin, in my right groin, over on we had a fire over on Lightning Mesa in Arizona. A guy from Cave Junction, whose name I can't remember. He and I jumped a two-manner. He jumped first. He landed on top of the mesa, and when I jumped out, it was way late in the afternoon. When I jumped out, a big wind came up and took me off the side of the mesa. I could not buck that wind. It just pushed me backwards, and I kept looking down, and I could see these little rocks down there. I thought, gee, it's kind of rocky down there, and the lower I got, the bigger the rocks got. When I got down there, those rocks were big as Volkswagens and Chevy Suburbans, and I hit the ground and did a roll backwards in that wind and pulled a muscle on my leg. Man, I was gimped up from that for a long time. Took years actually to heal that up.
On that deal, did you have to walk back up onto the mesa?
Yes. That other jumper came down and I couldn't stand up. So he grabbed me by my belt, and I crawled, and he boosted with my belt and got me up to the top. And they brought a helicopter in and took me out. And I thought I'd broken my pelvis or my femur. I couldn't tell. Felt like a broken bone. You know. They got me to the hospital, and nothing but pulled muscles. But those are bad. Those groin pulls like that are real slow to heal. It must have been a pretty bad one. It took me weeks. I jumped on it after that, And it was okay jumping and everything, but I noticed that when I got on the fire and I had to step up over something, oh man, that's smart.
So